everyone. I am always so honored to be here, and I am so appreciative of the love this community shares with me. This morning's spiritual principle is this: there is a law of self-approval. It is the mental and spiritual realization that we are one with the creative power of the universe. Remember, God is love, and God can only love. So Jesus was asked a question. They said, what's the most important thing that we need to know about, and how should we live life, and what is the basis of our relationships? Essentially, it was the question. And Jesus says that you love God and you love your neighbor as yourself. See, our entire relationships change when we love God and we love our neighbor as ourselves. So it's far easier to avoid loving yourself by trying to love someone else, as if that's going to work. Or looking for someone or something to replace really what we want deeply inside, which is to love ourselves. So this morning, I'm not here to talk about behavior. I'm here to talk about the root of the problem, the self-loathing that goes on in our lives. Something rarely talked about. It's the real elephant in the room, the real monkey on our back. It's the problem that really doesn't go away. Successful relationships are based on our ability to love ourselves. So Jesus, is there option B? Is there something like a little bit easier? Since I know myself, can I really love myself? I recently saw an article, and when I saw the title of the article, it was impossible for me not to read the article. The article title said this: "Then it all fell apart. Sex, drugs, and self-loathing." It's a must-read. This is a taboo subject. I don't know that self-loathing have I ever really heard as direct in all of my years of going to church. But I'm going to do my best to talk about this. So Moby writes, it says, "I wanted to die, but how? It was 5 a.m. and I had 15 drinks and $200 of cocaine and a handful of Vicodin." Yes, you are in church. "After I stumbled home at 4 a.m. depressed and alone, I wandered from room to room asking myself, I just want to die. I calmed myself and I considered my options. I could hang myself, but that seemed unnecessarily grisly. Then I was still a wasp from Connecticut, and even though I wanted to die, I needed to be polite. So before killing myself, I would have to remember to unlock the front door, tape a suicide note to the doorknob so that anyone coming in would not be surprised. Over the last few years, my depression had been building, and nights like this were common. I was lonely, and I desperately wanted to love and someone to love me. But every time I tried to get close to anyone, I had crippling panic attacks. I had a few successful years making music, and I sold tens of millions of records. But now my career was sputtering. 3 years earlier, I had spent $6 million on a 5-story apartment overlooking Central Park. And when I moved in, I was just still not happy. But the more I threw myself into debauchery, the more I ended up feeling self-loathing and loneliness. The world of fame and success that gave me meaning and legitimacy was being taken away from me. I just wanted to live at night, just like a vampire. I vaguely considered getting sober, but I figured institutional sobriety didn't work for me, which brought me back to the question of the day: how to kill myself. But I didn't want to be violent. So considering all my options, tying a bag over my head seemed like an easy and a painless and a polite way to end. So after a lifetime of baffling sadness, I declared defeat. I took a belt out of the closet and a garbage bag and got in bed. I sobbed into my pillow asking. I felt like I was asking my dead parents, what did I do wrong? Why didn't you love me? Why did you leave me? I put the bag over my head, and that was it. This will be my last memory, crying inside a plastic bag. I'm sorry, God, I whispered, and closed my eyes. Have you ever felt that way? Moby is an American musician. He's a songwriter, he's an animal activist, and he comes from my generation, the dance club generation. His name is really Richard, but his great-great-great-uncle actually wrote the book Moby Dick. And that's where he gets his nickname from. So he's known for dance music and the theme music to the Jason Bourne movies. The law of self-approval. Realizing that we are one and united with this one power, the power of love. But I believe that if you have self-loathing, this is the belief that your life will fall apart. Jennifer Butler Green wrote a book, she says, How to Love Yourself. Learning to love yourself despite being unloved, feeling self-hatred, and having self-loathing. I do really read very motivational books, by the way. Signs of self-loathing. A focus on productivity. The fact that it's very difficult to have fun. See, it's our responsibility. If we love ourselves, then we make ourselves happy. And if we refuse to make ourselves happy, I think you have to reflect. Do you really love yourself? Moby's fun always was in excess. Another example, believing that everything you do will fail. Success is not possible. You fail to dream. You're living in the past, unable to take the possibility of making a mistake going into the future. See, there are no dreams if you only look back. The abundant life is about intentional living. It's not aimless. It is very intentional. And Moby was stuck in his pain. Another example, comparing ourselves to others and becoming very self-critical. Thinking ourselves to be either inferior or superior. The focus on others and not on ourselves. It develops perfectionism, people-pleasing. You assume the worst and feel that you are unworthy for the good. Moby criticized his music, and he failed to write new music. And he was so talented, he remixed other people's music and became even more famous than he had been before. 16 albums, 20 million record sales, and 28 awards, yet he felt empty. You hate the way you look. Everyone else looks better than you. Remember, you have made this decision. You have determined that everyone else looks better than you. You are still in control, and you can change your mind. It's a decision that all of us make. Moby described himself as, I just look poor. See, the story of Moby's self-loathing and the root of the matter of his self-loathing, it leads to all kinds of excessive tendencies and self-destructive behavior. And as he said, he did all of them. So Moby went with David Lynch. This is the funniest story I think I've ever heard. Moby goes with David Lynch. David Lynch is the advocate for transcendental meditation, right? So they go to the Maharishi University in Iowa, in a city of 10,000 people. But the law of attraction will always show up. They're in a city with 10,000 people at the Maharishi University, yet Moby finds a rave. He said the night was filled with beer, tequila, ecstasy, angel dust, meth, and GHB. Doesn't sound like meditation to me. But what's the background for Moby here? I mean, you know, how did he end up here? Grew up in San Francisco and then moved to Connecticut when he was young. And he said, but I was so poor, and we lived in the poorest neighborhood, but it was right next door to the richest neighborhood in the United States. He was a victim of sexual abuse when he was very young. His father, a college professor, killed himself when Moby was only 2. And his mother spent her time with one biker man after another. And he describes his home as just full of drugs, and I just hated who I was. He writes, what do you do when you realize you have everything you think you've ever wanted, but still feel completely empty? Sufficiently happy now? Jill Green wrote a book, How to Love Yourself. But she says, here are some examples that there may be some self-loathing in our personality. Number 1, you know, that you just cannot get over the past. But what does it take for us to have a healthy concept and to get over the self-loathing? First of all, self-esteem, how we think about ourselves. Self-confidence, knowing that what we do and our abilities, that we can do something. And self-acceptance, just accepting ourselves just the way we are. Being aware of ourselves, respecting ourselves, and being empowered, making decisions for ourselves. We are in control of our lives. So what are the techniques that she gives as examples of the way to overcome this self-loathing? She says, if you're happy doing something, do it. So if you like ice cream, eat it. Practice gratitude. There's always something to be thankful for. Set a goal and move in that direction. And most importantly, forgive yourself. See, often self-loathing has to do with the guilt of something that we have done or something that has been done to us. But remember this, God has already forgiven everything possible because God is love. Self-realization is the intimate understanding that we are one with God, and we embrace this inner acknowledgement. Now, the problem here is, and I think that how do you get there? How do you connect this thing all together? See, I believe the law of self-realization, the law of self-approval, is really what Jesus was talking about when he said, the kingdom of heaven is within us. See, what does that mean? It just means that everything that within us is unified with God. It is good, because God not only does good things, God is good. God is love. God isn't just loving. God is love. It is exactly what God is. And what God is, we are. Living at peace and happiness. Now, the most important point here is this. You will have to make a decision. And you will have to make the decision before you feel self-love. We've practiced it all too long. And to get over it, we must start with a decision. Make a decision to love yourself. Moby went to a meeting and he said this is what he learned. Sober, I learned only the first step about drinking. The others are about dealing with the fear and the brokenness that made me drink in the first place. This is the root of the matter. Now, this was 10 years ago. He's been sober 10 years. And but he describes his making a decision. He said, looking at the floor, I raised my hand. I said my name. I am Moby, and I am an alcoholic. So today, it is decision time. Every day is a time to make a decision that you love yourself. It means so much more for us to know this rather than waiting for someone to convince us that we are lovable. Make a decision today to love yourself. And so it is. Let us pray this knowing this one power, this one presence, this one ultimate reality that is only love, reveals itself in and through each one of us. All we have to do is reach in. There's love there. The Christ consciousness is within us all. There is only love. It is the power of the universe, and a grain of it resides in each one with our name. And so it is.